Get ready. We're sharing the playbook. I'm Sarah Vantine of the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Some of the biggest names in fixed ops are stepping up to the mic to share their secrets on the Revolution Parts podcast. Join our expert speakers and friends at Revolution Parts as they break down the play-by-play of best practices, winning strategies, and real-world insights that are transforming the industry. This isn't just talk. This is how we take fixed operations to the next level. Tune in, take notes, level up. The revolution is here. Don't get sidelined as a bench warmer. Join the action by interacting with the chat on the right side of your screen. Just be sure to select everyone and not just hosts and panelists. We're warmed up and ready to rumble. Get a peek inside the efficiency playbook with our speakers Tully Williams, Brian Kramer, and David Spisak, along with Amanda Poe from Revolution Parts and our very own Ted Ings.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. This is the Fixed Ops Efficiency Playbook. This is the big podcast from Revolution Parts. Want to introduce our all-star players who are with us today, beginning with Tully Williams, Fixed Ops Director out at the Nilo Company in Sacramento, California. Brian Kramer, Vice President at Cars Commerce, who's with us here today. David Spisak from Disruptive Growth Solutions. Welcome, gentlemen. And of course, from Revolution Parts, want to welcome Amanda Poe. Thank you all for being with us today. And let's get right into it. Tully, if it's okay, I'm going to come over to you first. Tully, let's talk about finding efficiencies, particularly in the dealership and fixed ops. What are some of the biggest gaps or opportunities that you see right now in fixed ops, and how are they impacting profitability?
I look at it, is your focus on the right thing? And it says, my focus is on selling hours in the fixed ops department. But selling hours includes parts and service. And have your teams together on that sole purpose will increase your profits, because that is the ultimate focus. Is your parts department know the importance of the tech efficiency and making sure that we are staffed properly? Are you looking at ratios of technicians to parts people, technicians to its service advisors? Are you staffed well enough? You say, well, Tully, you don't want to hire too many people. Yes, I do, if I have a delay at the parts counter. Am I having a parts counter? My goal is to board all those up and have the parts counter on a roving desk that's in the shop at the technician's stalls and talking to them about what they need. Think about, how do you drive efficiency in your store? And it starts with parts. Without parts, we can't sell hours. So is your parts department on board? Talking about who's paying for the freight can never come out of a person's mouth. The issue is how fast can I get that part to that parts person and get that to the technician? That's the key issue. Efficiencies of getting parts department, giving parts to our technicians is key, number one.
David, you work with a lot of stores, not just here in the U.S., but globally. What are you seeing out there in terms of efficiencies?
Well, I think that we're at a bit of a tipping point, honestly, because the world is moving faster and faster. If you guys notice in this industry, every quarter, innovation is speeding up. It's accelerating. It's almost at a breakneck pace. And there still are many, many dealers. I would venture to say the majority of dealers out there are still operating their stores. I see groups, Ted, that own 10, 15, 20, 25 stores that still operate like they were that mom and pop with one store. I see it all the time. I see dealerships that are operating like it's 2019, right? Prince, right? We're going to party like it's 1999. We don't want to party like it's 2019. Everybody, it's 2025. It's time to innovate. You can't have technology be the only innovation in the house. You must have innovative leadership. You must have innovative compensation plans. You must have innovative sales process. And yes, you must have innovation in your parts department, right? Because your parts department is a critical link to your team in the service department's ability to move cars. We think all the time about throughput, and throughput efficiencies, right, Tully? I got to get that car in and car out. Think about this. The average hours per RO might be 2.3 out there in the industry, something like that. But the average RO is open 3 days plus. That is the antithesis of efficiency. Now, why is that? Is it because we don't have proper access to the right parts on time? Is it because we don't have people properly motivated? We don't have our compensation plans updated? There's a host of things, Ted, but it's time, bottom line, for us to start rethinking, and we can't abdicate our need to innovate to just the technology in the store.
David, great point. And that leadership mindset, typically and historically, we have not looked to parts for that in the past.
No, it's interesting. I think we touched on this a little bit at your spectacular event in New York, and thank you again for pulling that off, making that happen. Anytime we could put parts and service into the forefront of the minds of dealers and their personnel, we are doing a massive service to this industry, because it is and will continue to be for the foreseeable future, I believe, the most critical part of our retail automotive industry. I know everybody wants to talk about selling cars. I'm all about selling cars. That's how I came into the business. But I'll tell you what, when it comes to moving forward, you're going to see parts and service continue to play a greater and greater role in terms of retention, in terms of culture, and in terms of, selling cars. So it's critically important.
Amen, David.
Brian Kramer, your thoughts on finding efficiencies?
Don't hate me, Brian.
Well, actually, I'll take what David just said a step further, because I couldn't agree with you more. You're talking about selling cars. One of the things that I see the most committed errors the most when somebody's appraising vehicles is estimating what the parts reconditioning is going to be. They're overestimating or underestimating, and both of them are just as criminal, because they either don't take in the trade or they end up wholesaling it because they overestimated they're underestimated what the parts was going to be, and now they have to get rid of the vehicle versus just being precise on it like we are with every other part of the business. But I think that it's tough to be able to get people to change when they've done things a certain way for so long, or to get them to trust. So I think that it's extremely important that, to go back to what Tully was saying, that the leader establishes clarity as to what it is that we're trying to achieve. Because everybody, in my personal experience, when I tried to get innovation going, they would resist and they would push back because I didn't show them what was in it for them and how much it was affecting them, not just them, but their technicians, and what the off-the-shelf fill rate was, and how much it was affecting my loaner car cycle time, and all these other downstream things. Because most people are myopic naturally because they only have visibility into their little lens and their ecosystem. But when you start showing everybody the cascading effect across the org, and to start to quantify that, I think that's the key to really initiate change. Because a lot of times leaders don't tell them why they're changing. They're just telling, we're changing this, and without giving them the why behind it. And I think that's critical.
Brian, David made a statement in New York, and I'm going to paraphrase. He didn't say it exactly this way, but he said the days of dealers no longer being concerned about innovation and forward thinking, those days are over, Brian. And from this point forward, dealers have to be concerned about what's next and playing a big role in that.
And I think, to what David was just saying about technology, it's not just about technology, and it's not just about AI and all those sorts of things. Something that I saw recently, and I experienced it. I had the opportunity to oversee the largest wholesale parts operation earlier on in my career with a publicly traded company for a brief stint. But what I realized when I left that company and I tried to compete with them is that they were doing more business, and they were actually doing more business at a higher wholesale profit margin than I was trying to approach all these body shops. And I kept on asking them, I'm like, well, I'm going to give you a better deal. Why wouldn't you go through us? And they said, because I know I can depend on that dealer. They do what they say they're going to do. They're consistent, and I can always count on them when I need to. And the parts show up when they say they're going to, and they don't overpromise and they don't underdeliver. And I think that everybody always wants to get in this price battle. Well, wholesale, there's not enough margin in it, and you can't make money in doing that. And what Tully said earlier about, let's quit asking about the freight, let's quit asking about all those things and just be there for the customer. I think that's the kind of innovation that needs to occur, not just the technology, but actually innovating a customer-centric process from wholesaling and retail parts.
Amanda, this is very refreshing, and a lot of the new thinking that's coming into the industry. And I heard some of that from your co-founder CEO recently when I had a chance to speak with him, and the thinking that's gone into Revolution Parts as well.
Absolutely. Ibrahim is he's a revolutionary, and there's a reason why he named us Revolution Parts. And I love what Brian just said, where you have to rethink the way that you're approaching things. And something that I hear so often in my business is we don't want to do wholesale because the profit margins are too low. We don't want to do e-commerce because the profit margins are too low. If you look only at profit margins and you don't look at customer retention, you don't look at customer satisfaction, you don't look at bringing them back over and over and over again, you only look at those profit margins. Sure, it's going to seem scary. But the other thing that I think people fail to consider is when it comes to wholesale and e-commerce and all of these different selling channels, you're not losing money by not making as much profit. You're gaining sales you never would have had otherwise. So sure, on wholesale, you make 10% less than you do when somebody comes into the counter, but that's money you never would have seen in the first place. And so embracing those new technologies and those new way of doing things, that's where I see the future of the parts department going.
You know,
David, go
I'd
ahead.
like to jump in, if it's okay, on what Amanda just said. And, anybody that knows me knows I'm a fan of counterintuitive thinking. I'm a fan of the non-obvious, right? Wait, if you're doing the obvious, if you're doing what everybody else is doing, you are by definition average, normal, standard. And there's no glory in that. Nobody's buying a book from anybody who was the greatest average performer ever, greatest conformist ever. Nobody cares. Right. So you have to be willing. Here's another one, right? 10 types of innovation. So 10 types of innovation, right? If this would be a very thin book, if it was just innovation technology. So you have to have innovative thinking. I want everybody to think about this. Amanda, I would take issue with you saying it's only 10% difference. It could be far greater than that. I mean, I could have a 35 to 45% parts margin, and I could only have a 10 or 15%. I don't care. We're getting lost in the weeds. We're getting hung up on the obvious, right? I could think of a couple companies that have seemed to have struggled into being okay in okay shape. One's Amazon and one's Walmart. Both of them are low-cost providers. Both of them operate on razor-thin margins, and they're not the only ones. So I think that we have to be able to see the forest through the trees, as Brian said. We oftentimes are too myopic and we look for the obvious. We'll just look at right here. Here's the thing, everybody, I think you need to consider. So I look around, we measure market share ad nauseum in new cars. We don't do it anywhere to that degree in used. We don't do it at all in our parts department. And I want you, have you ever gone out and looked at all the zip codes in your market and found every independent, every collision center? Have you measured your market share? Are you looking at how much your customer is spending on average? How much those zip codes generate on average? Are you trending that to see if you're growing that business or not? Okay, that's one thing. Two, you got to consider the fact that those people, every single one you do business with, is a potential network for referrals for new cars and new car business, right? A collision center is going to deal with people that might be looking for a new car. They're going to deal with insurance companies every day that know people that their car's not going to be in the collision center because it was totaled. They need a new car. I think you have to be able to really be that Wayne Gretzky that sees where the puck is going. And to me, if you're in a local market, everyone, are you getting out of your parts department, going to see them and being able to earn their business? I did this recently, and I'll end on this. Small dealership, very small. Okay. And they were not getting anywhere near the wholesale penetration or parts gross that I felt that they were capable of. So I said, go out there, take a Starbucks gift card, go out, hang out with them. Here's $25 Starbucks gift card. I would love to know what I can do to better serve your business. Faster, simpler, easier, right? And he found out from not one, but multiple collision centers that what they thought, the reason they weren't doing business, Ted and Amanda, was because the return policy was it was not favorable to them. Their terms for payment, they felt, were very different, much tougher, much more strict or limited than anybody else they did business with. So he had no idea. He fixed that. Now he has all of their business. So guys, if you go out there, there's a huge market. And that market, you're not going to just get those parts that you wouldn't have had before, those sales you wouldn't have had before in the gross. But trust me, those people that own those shops, they drive your cars. They're people that work for them, drive your cars, and yep, their customers do too.
Tully, aren't these some of the reasons why you're in the e-commerce business? Some of the things that David just called out here?
100%. I mean, the goal is that we want all the channels. And I loved how David said, get out of the weeds. Don't worry about the gross profit. As I said, I don't care about the money. I care about what you're after. I'm after selling hours. I got to have parts to sell hours. I want to own the wholesale market. I don't care about the money at that point. Am I doing the job right? Am I getting parts department to give the parts to the wholesale? Well, who does not want to own every body shop? Because our ultimate goal in business is retention. I don't care about selling cars. I don't care about anything else. I just want, if I have you as a customer, I never want to let you go. And at the Nilo company, we're great that we have multiple brands. I want to keep you in the Nilo family for life. And the more I'm out there talking to people, that's how it works, right? If I have the wholesale business, when they need a car, when they need a car service, they're going to come to us. If your reputation out there is you're going to do a great job and be honesty and integrity, you are going to win every battle. But here's the deal. It starts with everybody believing in that. So the culture at your store has to be in that. Instead of being, well, that's going to cost you $50 in freight. What do you want to do? That word can never come out of your mouth, ever. And the goal is that is everybody in your store prepared for that? Here's another thing I like to look at e-commerce is that I believe that the parts department inventory needs to grow. It doesn't need to grow old. And every channel that I have in selling wholesale parts, and I'm online and selling those parts, helps me drive my inventory. And guess what the manufacturer wants us to sell? They only want to sell two things. They want to sell cars and they want to sell parts. They don't care about labor and they don't really care about used cars. But if they care about those things, so now if I'm moving parts constantly through all the channels that I have, I can make more money. That's the ultimate goal. But here's the deal, as I'm moving my parts, I'm keeping my parts inventory clean and efficient, which means that in turn drives my shop to even more efficiencies because now I have a bigger breadth of parts where I can sell more hours faster. And like David said, 3 hours, 3 days doesn't work for us. We've got to get people in and out in a day or two. Loaner cars are the devil. And if we have the parts, we stop the devil.
Brian, this is refreshing thinking on the fixed and parts side.
Yes, but I would say that there's something else that every dealer needs to be thinking about in a much bigger way. So the more data that you have around what parts are selling, not selling, what the obsolescence, your off the shelf fill rate, all of those things, that's going to power the AI models of the future. And if you're not maximizing that, then you don't know what's selling. And more important than that, people are going to be searching for these parts using AI-based search. And they're already doing it now with ChatGPT and Google Gemini and things like that. So I would say that right now is like an Oklahoma land data grab in automotive retail. And whoever is getting the most data, these dealers that are already doing wholesale parts and that are really just in the parts game, they're only going to get amplified. So if you're not in this game, it's going to be too late 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Data is the crude oil of the currency of the future or of the now. And if dealers aren't playing in this and they don't have a link on their website to be able to retail parts and they don't have the ability to be able to perform e-commerce, then they're going to be out of the game and they won't show up at all in a year and a half, 2 years. They will be irrelevant when it comes to this, when it comes to online search and frequency and relevance, because Google and Bing and all these things are not going to be the way people search in the future. It's already changed. You get 200 million users on ChatGPT. It's already changed. So you have to do this in order to become relevant. And the data, to me, trumps the cost of the freight. You just let the freight go. It's not. It's an irrelevant comment right now because right now you have to get the data. Yeah.
Brian, this AI conversation around parts, this is where it's at because this is the game changer. And you're right, it's happening now. And our friend Brian told us about this a few weeks ago. but it's true. And Chat GPT, the whole game is changing. This whole search engine is changing.
Websites are going to be changing. The way that people search, obviously we own dealer inspired websites, and we're looking at all these different models because we've got to change and disrupt ourselves, because the way that people start searching through AI is taking them directly to site links. And if you don't have site links that show up in terms of relevance, that are sticky, not just to Google and not just to search engines, but also to Chat GPT, to Google Gemini, to Grok, if you're not thinking about that and how that's going to be appealing to those AI search engines, I mean, that's where everybody needs to be thinking about immediately. And then more importantly, and to touch on what everybody on this panel has been saying, you've got to have the infrastructure, the process, and the people that can execute on it. And that's typically where I see it fall down, is that they have this grandiose idea. They're going to do all these things on the website, and I'm going to market all these things. And then when push comes to shove, the pay plans aren't aligned, the people aren't aligned, the staffing's not aligned, the resources weren't committed, because it took a 90-day lag time before we actually saw the results. And then we didn't want to plant the flag on that. So I think that everybody needs to be aligned. It's a total dealership initiative, and it's well worth it for everybody, including the customer.
Ted, let me butt in here for just a second on what Brian just said, because I think half the people that are watching this webinar right now probably just started Googling terms like site links and chat GPT and probably are a little lost on all of the importance of being online. But he said that it's really important to find the right people and to find the right tools and find the right technology. And I would add to that and say it's also really important to find the right partner, because not every parts expert is an expert in the industry. Not every fixed ops expert is an expert in the internet. And sometimes you have to find the right partner. And I love to say that because I love to be that partner. But as as everybody saw in New York City, when Ibrahim, our CEO, came and spoke on Revolution Parts, we didn't power $4.5 billion in parts sales last year with over 2,500 dealers for no reason. We like to be that partner. And if you heard him say that, and you heard site links and you heard AI tools and your eyes rolled back in your head, a conversation with a partner that can help you with those things is absolutely essential to the dealership success.
I think it's also important to dovetail for everybody listening, whether you're in parts or whether you're in the service department, or whether you're, frankly, hopefully you're from the front end and you have a greater and greater interest on what's going on back here in the parts and service department. If you're not, I tell dealers all the time, we're at a point in time to where this is not the time to be thinking about fixed ops, to be thinking about parts. This is not the time to be focused on it. This is the time to master it. Anything less than that is going to cost you business. I want you to consider the fact of what Amanda just said, 2,500 dealers. And if you think about that, that's roughly 1 out of every 6 dealers, 1 out of every 7. And they did $4 billion in part sales. Can you imagine if one of those is your competitor and you decided to not stick your toes in the water? You're now on the outside looking in. Let me tell you something. Google obviously was the monster, the first monster in search. But you would go to Google to go find something and they would say, oh, here's the product. Amazon then said, well, what if we create a search bar that doesn't show you the product, but brings the product to you? And now you've got ChatGPT is now becoming, to Brian's point, it is the new search. Why would you think that Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Google, just think about those 5 names, that all 5 of them are going all in on AI, right? The reason is simple, is if they don't, they're going to become a dinosaur. And whether you're the smartest dinosaur is immaterial. You're still a dinosaur. So if you don't understand it, that's not an excuse. You got to find somebody who does understand that. And Amanda, your point is a brilliant one. If you don't understand it, you don't know how to get from where you are to mastery, that's okay. Simply find somebody who can. It's like the great story about Ford, right? When he was on trial, where people said that he did not have the intellect to run his company. And he said, hey, famously, he said in court, I've got a desk that has buttons. Anything I don't know, I push a button and somebody smarter than me walks in the room and handles it for me. We have that better, more than we've ever had it before. So go find a great partner like a Revolution in Parts that has the ability to go do what you want to do rather than just staying on the sidelines.
Tully, a while back, you addressed compensation as a way to address efficiencies at the dealership. You did some unique things by taking the dealership out of these silos, referring to parts and service. Talk to us about that, if you don't mind.
Well, parts and service managers need to be paid the same, 100%. There is no difference between the two. There can never be the fight between. If you pay your service manager on service gross and your parts manager on parts gross, you're a moron, because all they do is fight all the time. The goal is that you're paying them on fixed ops, because that's what it really is. It should not be called parts and service departments. It should be called fixed ops department. And they're there together working to sell hours, which in turn drives revenue. So when the service and parts managers are together, they work better. Now, after said that, the focus here at the Nilo company is to what? To sell hours. And selling hours sells parts. So now the goal is that we have a forecast that we have for everybody at our store. Now think about this. Your parts department is going to be paid on the hours forecast, the back counter, because they are the ones that are helping driving our efficiencies. They're not paid on gross. They're not paid on anything else. They're paid on what they help produce, which is selling the hour. So now they're paid on the hours forecast. Now freight becomes irrelevant, because that drives the efficiency down. How do we get parts counter people not to be at the counter on a stool, but in the shop roving around on a counter with their screens and at their computers? Because it helps drive efficiencies. And that's what they're paid on. Service advisors are paid on their personal hours forecast. Everybody at the store is paid the same way. That's what drives the success of a store and drives what your focus is. And at the Nilo company, our focus is to drive hours, because that drives all of the revenues that we want.
Brian Kramer, over the years, you and I have seen a lot of resistance in retail to new thinking, new tools. Employees are used to doing it the same old way. How do we handle resistance now, today, 2025, when it comes to these new tools that are entering in fixed operations?
Well, I'll give you one anecdote just to piggyback on what Tully just said.
Okay.
I think that, I'm in all these dealerships and everybody's always debating about, well, my service is charging me too much. I can't acquire used cars because I can't get it through the shop and all these different things. I would say, now this is going to be pretty controversial, but I would say that the dealer should do the opposite. And they should never discount labor. They should never discount parts. I actually think that if you're trying to salvage lower cost, and I'm talking out of warranty, less expensive vehicles that are non-OEM, I actually think that you should increase the margin. And I think you should increase the margin on non-OEM parts or their equivalent of an AC Delco or something like that, right? Because I don't think that enough people do that. Now it's more work for the parts, parts department to go off of the normal system that they're using and get those parts. So it's a little bit more work. So they should make a little bit more money. But the cost of sale goes down. So the margin has nothing to do with it. And most of that profit, when they pay, whatever, $1,400 to $2,000 an RO, the percentage that's actually going to the dealership is not as much as every variable person thinks. So they really need to educate. Well, the parts department, fixed ops department needs to do a better job of educating the variable department, and the variable department needs to do a better job of understanding it. But when I was in retail running stores, I would just say, look, here's the average dollar amount that we're paying per car. Here's the average margin. You tell me how much more we can squeeze out of that. If this is the NCM benchmark and this is this, and then they come to self-guided discovery to realize that it's not them, it's the fact that there was evaporation in the process when they appraised the car, and they misappraised it because they underestimated what the recon was going to be, the parts pricing, because they don't have the technology and the tools. So I think there has to be some sort of feedback loop where you're holding those people accountable, the appraisers, the parts department, everybody involved, so that you know exactly where the spillage is and exactly where the gross profit leakage is, and then just fix it. Because everybody wants to go like this all the time,
right,
instead of just identifying where the learning gaps are and let the egos go away. And that's really how change happens, so that everybody can make more money.
So can I piggyback on that, Brian? Is that I 100% agree. And when I brought the used car managers and the fixed ops departments together, I paid the used car manager on the recon gross profit. And I'm telling you, I'm not saying to over recon a car. I'm just saying stop and think for a minute, because the store makes more money in recon, like you're saying, than they do on the front end of the car. Think about that first. We want to make sure that we're giving quality used cars to our customers, because we're in the repeat and referral business. And to take some of that stigma away, it really helps. So that's called out of the box thinking. Help your managers together, work together, and pay plans make that happen.
David, let me come to you on the efficiencies and on the resistance to these new tools.
The resistance sounds like a Star Wars theme, doesn't it?
It does.
You must fight the resistance.
Well, the resistance has always been there, and it's up to us to find a better way. And whether it's one of these tools we're talking about now or something that's coming down the pike in the near future, how do we overcome that?
Well, there've been some great ideas already served up, but I'll throw a couple of others out there. I find it interesting that the difference between a leader and a manager, there's a number of them, but one of them that definitely stands out is when you think about a leader, they are a one of one, right? They're visionary. They welcome change. They embrace change. They don't resist change. They get raving fans, right? They don't have employees. They have fans. They take great pride in developing themselves and developing others. Managers tend to be copies of the managers that they grew up underneath. And I think we need to pay special attention to this, because when you have managers that resist change, you got to figure out why that is. Secondly, you got to understand that whatever their belief system is, it's being disseminated down to the troops, right? So speed of the troops, speed of the leader. Another part of this, to me, that I think is incredibly important is I think that we overvalue experience in our industry and we undervalue emotional quotient. If you think about the people on this panel, if you think about every dealer you've seen at a 20 group, every great leader of every great company out there, they have massive amounts of EQ, right? And what is EQ? It's drive, it's work ethic, it's esprit de corps, it's the ability to have critical thinking. It's somebody who is willing to take the time to develop themselves. And you think about your people that you hire purely based on experience. That's all you get, right? And think about it. Whether I've got experience as an advisor, Tully, think about this. Do you have experience, David? Yeah, I've been an advisor for 10 years. I've been average for 10 years. Yeah, when can I start? Do you want me in your building? I don't want that person in my building, right? What if I got a parts department person in wholesale that doesn't believe in wholesale? That's a problem, right? So I think that it's really important that we take a step back and we do a better job of attracting, recruiting, and developing the right people who have the right stuff, those X factors, and stop relying. Don't take the sucker bet on a hack that I'm going to hire somebody because they've got 10 years of experience, because now I don't have to get off my butt to go train them, right? Or I don't want to spend the money to develop them. If you want to grow, you have to grow, right? If you want more out of your people, you've got to demand more out of you. And so I think it's critically important. A couple other just side points because of what Brian brought up. And I love this conversation, but we've known for years that inventory dictates search in used cars. Is that not right, Brian? Inventory dictates
100%.
search. Okay, please, everybody, take a lesson from this. This is the same for parts. Inventory dictates search. So one of the superpowers to me of a Revolution Parts is I've got that inventory, right? That ability, and that's going to dictate search. If they can't find you, if they don't know who you are, how are you going to do business?
You don't
with them?
exist.
You don't exist. You're going to become more and more invisible as time goes on. So I think that that's critically important. Here's something else. Anything that you're willing to accept, you perpetuate. You're guilty. You're culpable. You're part of the problem. So if you have somebody that resists change and they're allowed to be in your system, in your organization, you better know that they're having a negative impact on your culture. And if they're negatively impacting your culture, they're negatively impacting indirectly your net profit. So make sure that you know who your people are. Do an assessment. Reach out to me if you want, and I'll be happy to take you through how to assess. I will show you exactly who you've got and who the lead. And one more thing. Some of the greatest leaders in organizations, they're not managers. And some of the weakest are managers. Think about that for a moment. So anyways, I think this is critically important. I think that we have to compensate our people correctly. I love what you're doing, Tully. I love your non-traditional thinking. because what that's doing, everything that you guys are talking about, Brian, is it's eliminating and bringing down the silos between parts, service, new, used. The used car manager doesn't care what service makes. The service manager doesn't care what the used car. Guys, do you see a problem here? I see a problem. We're supposed to be one organization, one vision, all running in the same direction. But most stores have compensation plans that actually don't even make that possible.
David, if I can follow up, one more question, if I could, talking about the growth that we're all discussing here. How do you prioritize that growth without sacrificing efficiency? You know, we're talking about adding on an additional sales channel, let's say e-commerce, or increasing profits, boosting ROI, trying new marketing avenues, AI, without overworking employees or, let's say, having to even hire and bring new people in.
It's a great question, Ted. And, you know, we are this is the new golden age. You know, it's the golden age of AI, but make no mistake, there's going to become a bigger and bigger separation between the median or average and the dominators. You watch, it's going to start going like this. And the reason is
It's happening now.
Those who are dominating, they're not embracing AI. They're not. They already have. Okay. If you haven't by now, you're not a year behind, you're 5 years behind, you're 10 years behind. So the reality is if they're learning, you know, in parts and CRM, in used car acquisitions, in DMS systems, in every area of our business, BDC, AI is not coming, it's here. And if you are going up against those organizations, what they're doing, Ted, is they're leveraging that hyper intelligence. They're leveraging AI to be able to allow their people to deliver a superior client experience. How? Because they have something that everybody wants. They have more time. Because the AI, those right solutions and the right partners like Amanda's talking about, it allows their employees, and think about this, this is all tied together. If you have the right employees with high EQ and they are enabled, superpowered now by more efficient, proficient because of AI, they have more time to be able to exert their superpower, which is their personality, which is their fact that they care about your clients, they care about your organization, they care about doing a great job. They're not inundated or buried in data. They're not buried in processes that are inefficient. So I think what's possible is, in what's happening right now, is organizations are going out and finding hyper intelligent, hyper committed partners. The age of the vendor is dead. The age of the product is dead. You need partners and you need solutions. And then when you have both of those and you combine them with a great leader, great culture, and AI, you have an organization that is going to dominate for years to come. And you could spend less money in marketing and less money in staffing doing it.
Everybody, we've only got a few minutes left. We have a couple questions that have come in from the audience. I'd like to go to Tully first. And Tully, just take about a minute, if you would, on this question here. I want to get to one or two others as well. Tully, what's one process change that you've made at the Nilo company that's been the biggest difference in your fixed ops and in your efficiency?
I'm going to go back to the sole focus of what we're here for. First is retention, but really it's all about selling the hours. So the parts department, the service department, everybody is on the same page, and we're all focusing on the same thing. Look at your pay plans. Like David said, some pay plans go against each other. That is just wrong. Our goal is to make sure that you have a single-minded focus at your store and monitor it. And two, is your pay plans actually go with that pay plan, with that function that you want to do. It's a must.
Brian, question for you from a parts manager. He says, I typically track many metrics in the course of my average day. What do you recommend we track to make sure that we're actually getting ROI from new tools, Brian Kramer?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, you're going to track CP parts percentage, gross profit percentage, or internal profit percentage. But if it's me, you're going to track the off-the-shelf fill rate. You're going to track your buckets on what your obsolescence is, and hopefully nothing over 180 days old. And then as you're doing your parts pad variance, hopefully that's less than 3%. But I think at the end of the day, Tully's done a really good job of really articulating the simplicity. When you focus on the hours, all of those things will follow suit and they take care of themselves. If you're talking, but the one thing that I will add into this that is not typically looked at, and I think that this is the biggest, no pun intended, Amanda, but every evolution starts with a revolution. But the revolution that needs to occur is that there needs to be, I know you say you don't want to add headcount, but either the marketing director or, a lot of stores have AI champions now. Everybody needs to start measuring. This is what we did in the dealership, that wholesale operation I was talking about earlier. Are we getting more views per day? You track, your website views overall for the dealership, and are we getting more VDPs per vehicle? And are we getting more VDPs for this? What's your top VDP by part number? Are people looking for maintenance items? Are they looking for brakes? Are they looking for tires? Are you getting more website visits on your parts tab, your service appointment tab? Now that I'm in this website business, I'm out of retail. I can't tell you the importance and the impact. Like if I was to go back into retail tomorrow, I would be focused first on my website performance, on the fixed ops tab and the parts tab, and what am I doing? How many people are going to my tires page and bouncing? What's the amount of traffic that's going there, that's converting and going through that whole funnel? The way we look at sales, we need to look at fixed ops. To me, that's the blue ocean that's limitless right now. Until everybody figures this out. But I don't think there's enough people playing in it. I would be living in it.
David, one more question if we have time for you. This came up a little bit earlier in our conversation. Handling team members who resist new technology, that resistance question. David Spisak.
Well, this may not be popular. And I will preface this by saying, if I'm known for a couple things, one of them is I'm a data fanatic. I've been a data fanatic. I've studied more data than anybody I know for the last 40 years. But the other thing is that everything I do is based on people. My team here, my team at my software companies, and my team at the dealership, I went 20 years without losing an associate. My turnover was under 3%. 353 employees. And that was a team effort to make that happen. That you can't get to that point when you have dissension. You can't get to that point when you have toxicity. You can't get to that point when you don't have believers. And so one of the things you have to do, I think, that in many stores that we're too afraid of the associates. I think we're so afraid to upset the apple cart and lose even a bottom performer, a C player, a D player, because we know how hard it is. We know how onerous the process is to go find somebody. But I'm telling you, once you get an A player in your building, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Think about in your career, every time you hire somebody who is brilliant at what they do, they don't just elevate your results, they elevate the culture. They make everybody else around them. They create passive competition. They make people work harder, right? And yes, they make you look like the smartest person in the room. So I think one of the first thing that we have to do, again, is you have to be able to know who's on your team and who's not. There's only two reasons any human can't achieve anything. It's a lack of will or it's a lack of ability. Tully, if I have somebody with a lack of ability, what do we do with them? We coach them. If they have a lack of ability, Brian, we train them.
Correct.
But if they have a lack of will, I'm going to take you to my outside office, bro. I'm going to take you in my outside office out back. We're going to have a serious conversation. I need to understand why you have this disconnect, why you're
their
not.
limiting beliefs are contagious.
And if we can't solve that, you can't do what you do here. I'm sorry. I'm going to become the biggest and best headhunter agency in my area for my competition. And I'm going to give you every single person in my store that doesn't belong in my store, right? I will literally serve them up to you because I've got to get them out of that environment. I'm doing a disservice to every one of the great people in my organization. Correct. If I allow one bad, toxic human being to exist. Now, if there is resistance because they've had PTSD, because we haven't done a good job, like Brian said, of telling them why we're doing something, if we haven't brought them into the equation, into the process, that's a different story. That's on us. But most of the time, that's not the case. Last thing, please, everybody, stop treating your dealership like a chia pet, where you can go find a solution and just add water, and all of a sudden that whole Richard Simmons hair, Donald Trump hair is going to grow out of your chia pet. Doesn't work that way. You need to be massively engaged. You need to show leadership. And when you bring on a great new solution, you need to be in the front and telling everybody about it. One last thing, please, let's have your parts manager start showing up in sales meetings. You could be doing so much more in accessory sales and sales in general if you get your parts managers to regularly show up. If you have a weekly, have them show up. Have them talk about the newest accessory. Have them create a one sheet to make it easy for your people to, hey, here's the 10 top things your people are buying on Rogues or on Honda Pilots or whatever, to where here's the labor, here's the parts. Here's, I could get you in at this time. Here's the money. And by the way, they can finance it in their deal. If you do that, magic things will happen. And so we need to get our parts people into the room in sales. We need to get our sales guys out into the service department, and we got to eliminate these silos. That will help to reduce the resistance.
I have one last thing for our audience watching today. If you would visit revolutionparts.com/toolkit. We're putting it on the screen. You can go ahead and you can download and get a copy of the latest toolkit from Revolution Parts. Again, revolutionparts.com/toolkit. I want to thank the panel with us today. Tully Williams from the Nilo Company out on the West Coast. You got some company on the West Coast now, Tully. David Spisak from Disruptive Growth Solutions. Great to have you, David and Tully.
Always a pleasure.
Brian Kramer. Wow. Just wow from Cars Commerce. Thank you. And just great input from everybody. Amanda Poe, on behalf of Revolution Parts, thank you so much for all that you do for the industry. Everybody, we'll be back again. A lot more information from Revolution Parts. Again, download the toolkit. I'm Ted Ings, and thank you for your time with us today.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Ted.
It's not every day that you get to take a page out of the playbook of the professionals. Thank you for joining the Fixed Ops Roundtable on the Revolution Parts podcast. Don't miss out on more tips and expert information handcrafted by the speakers you just heard from. Make sure to visit RevolutionParts/toolkit to download the efficiency playbook today.